from Venezuela to Russia's tankers. Is the United States quite, let's go worst case scenario. Is the United States quietly expanding a global war? Because we've learned, as Richard has mentioned, we've learned about the new package of weapons going to Taiwan, $11.1 billion. The new package, the largest package so far to Taiwan.
Well,
What is your take on that?
Richard has just spelled out what the national security statement means when it says that the U.S. Empire is over and we can't try to run the world. It'll be a division into regions. It means just what he said, working through proxies in practice. In other words, we can't afford any more costs to go to war against Russia in Ukraine. That's just a bottomless sink of money, given the corruption and the fact that Ukraine's lost so heavily. Uh, but I think that Trump is fed up with Europe. You've seen all of his anti-European statements. Uh, so essentially, when he says giving up the empire, he's talking about Europe's fight with Russia now. If Europe wants to fight with Russia, he says, let it be our proxy. We'll do everything we can to help it. We're going to continue to give it the radar guidance and the military guidance of exactly where to bomb Russia, but we're not going to spend any money on it. We're going to have Europe take responsibility for the money. Unfortunately, we have our puppets there, Merz, who just said he wants to begin drafting Germans again into the new Wehrmacht to fight Russia, as if there's going to be a land war. And Macron, who continues to send French mercenaries there, and of course Starmer in England. So this is using them as proxies. The United States is disengaging from them, just as it's trying in Asia to use Taiwan and Japan and South Korea as its proxies, or in Latin America, right-wing governments like Bolsonaro, who Trump tried to free from jail for his attempts to overthrow the election. But there's another thing that is required for this ending of the U.S. control, and that's something I think you were getting towards. It means the collapse of international law. It means the replacement of not only international law, but all of the principles of the United Nations that were created seemingly legally after World War II. It's the law of the sea, for instance, that the sea belongs to everyone and it's not nationalized as part of the United States. Trump says that other countries have stolen the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans from the United States and it's ours and we're going to take it back. I'm sort of paraphrasing or extending what his thought process is. But it's also climate deals. The Paris agreements by countries who are all threatened by the global extreme weather, the global warming, the floods and the droughts that are happening all over. They were trying to decarbonize the environment so that you can prevent this climate disaster from happening and raising the sea levels and flooding the seacoasts all over the world. Well, as Trump basically says, well, just as we're against you saying the law of the sea is free to everybody, as if it's not our ocean that you were talking about. So with the climate deals, we're against any international agreement that prevents us from controlling the world energy trade through our control of oil and deciding who can produce and trade this oil and who are we allowed to block. That's all blocked. So you have this, you had international law of free trade, of most of the favored nations, of free capital movements. All of these moves and all of this sort of ideology that was put in place at the end of World War II that seemed to be where civilization was moving towards the all governments majority acting together to solve common problems in the world, from who can use the sea to how do we prevent some countries from polluting the government and hurting others and threatening their security, to the military ideas. Yes, there will be national security, military for every country, but not at the expense of other countries' military security, as the Russian president and foreign minister continued to say. All of this is an attack saying international law is ended. It's all all subject to the U.S. rules-based order that basically any agreement or rules governing international trade, the usage of fuels is basically under unique U.S. domination, and that's the real power grab here. That there's really only one sphere of influence that's a regional influence, and that's America over Latin America. All of these other countries that are supposed to have a sphere of influence. When it says a Russian sphere of influence, it means let Europe fight Russia, not us. When it says a Chinese sphere of influence, it says, well, let China try to do what it can, but we're going to surround it with the Quad countries and with American proxies, especially in Taiwan, that we just signed. America just signed an enormous, I think, $11 billion arms deal with to try to counter it. America's not recognizing any country's sphere of influence except its own. Which is stay out of Latin America. And as Richard just pointed out, that wasn't the Monroe Doctrine. Any country could trade or borrow from other countries. And in fact, right as the Latin American countries, beginning in the 1920s, won their political liberty from their foreign colonizers, Mexico, Brazil, all of the Latin American countries went into debt to British bankers primarily, and Haiti went into debt to buy its freedom from French bankers. All of these Latin American countries became financial satellites of England and European bankers. America had no problem with that, no problem with other trade. America was all in favor of Latin American trade with other countries as long as the profits were all sent to the United States, not to, and the United States is the beneficiary of this trade. So basically, Trump is saying a sphere of influence cannot be permitted unless the United States is the single beneficiary of any economic and balance of payment surpluses that are created by these five regions. That's the double standard that is the national security study is supposed to promote.
Another, if I could add another, again, just enriching the layers of understanding of what's going on here. You know, the United States came out of World War II. It was the dominant economic power, but it wasn't just that it was the U.S. dollar everywhere and the U.S. financed everything and the U.S. provided the loans, you know, the Marshall Plan and all the rest for the whole rest of the world and dominated world trade. It was also the political domination, the ideological, the Hollywood produced the movies that everybody looked at. Levi Strauss produced the jeans that everybody learned to wear, blah, blah, blah. All of that, with one exception, and we're not sure about that, has eventually been overturned. The United States is not the top economic door. We've discussed this now ad nauseum, and the evidence for it is everywhere and accumulates literally every day. Ditto with the politics. You know, on some of the key issues, the United States not just loses votes in the United Nations, but loses them overwhelmingly. You know, there are votes of 100 plus countries to 5. And the United States is one of the 5. and Israel is typically there, and then little islands in the Pacific. But the rest of the world is no longer, and even the Europeans, slavish towards the U.S. as they continue to be, at least the leaders, are making statements against the politics of the United States. And I can assure you, the mood here, I've only been here a couple of days, the critique of Trump is everywhere, between the lines or on the lines in the press and so on. So the political weaponry isn't there. The political position is gone. The economic position is gone. The ideological position is gone. The world is not hanging on every fad coming from the United States the way it once did, whether it's in dress or anything else. So what's left? Here's my point. Military. We haven't yet demonstrated to the world that our military is no longer the overwhelming. For most of the last 30 years, and there were agencies that did this, when there were tabulations of how much the major countries of the world spent on the military, the United States was listed not only as number one, but as spending more on the military than the next 8 or 9 countries combined. And those 8 or 9 included Russia and China. In other words, the United States was as overwhelmingly dominant in the Cold War period, militarily, as it was economically, politically, and ideologically. Here's how I interpret what Michael said, and that phenomena which continues to appear to me to be much more important than it's getting the attention. Shooting innocent people because they haven't been proven guilty, who are sitting in boats in the Caribbean or in the Pacific. By the way, I believe 95 of them, or some number like that, have been killed. Right? That is a very powerful symbolism of we are going to use what we still have, military. We're not going to rely on what the previous stupid presidents did, which is you have the Navy, you board the ship, you confiscate the drugs if they're there, you arrest the people involved, and then they go into their country and they get tried. No. That didn't work. And so now we use what we have left, the fist. We are in a position to do let the world beware. You get on the wrong side of us, and we are going to be doing this to you too. Okay, this is using the military because you don't have anything else anymore you can use. And there are 2 outcomes here that are possible. Number 1, it will work. You will terrorize a large part of the world by the threat of military action, and that's ultimately nuclear military action. Or you could have both of these, of course, or you will provoke the rest of the world to see you as the number 1 danger to world peace and to organize themselves economically, politically, to defeat you. And here, let me leave you with an observation. We have hollowed out our manufacturing. We cannot go it alone. And if the rest of the world were to view us as a rogue nation prepared to threaten with military, there will be reactions. Ask yourself, if you want to, ask yourself the question, if Mr. Trump's advisors who want war in Venezuela have their way, and the United States attacks, lands troops, all of that sort of thing. It's not just that the Russians and Chinese may have some surprises for them in Venezuela. It's that they, of course, can take retaliatory steps in all kinds of ways. We're going to perhaps start hearing again about rare earths and all kinds of other things they could do. And there we see again the road to war laid out right in front of us, but dependent on the decisions being made literally as we talk.